Starting. Hello and welcome back to another session by Gravy on Narratives. We'll bring you this topic about Israeli economy, and I'm going to introduce the topic first. The ongoing conflict in Gaza has drawn significant global attention, highlighting the severe suffering of the Gaza population. However, this focus has overshadowed the profound repercussion the war is having on the Israeli economy and its citizens. The mobilization of approximately 400,000 Israeli Defense Force soldiers has led to substantial personal and economic losses, with many soldiers leaving behind families and jobs and around 250,000 Israeli displaced due to hostilities. The economic impact is back, with 46,000 businesses failing since the onset of the conflict, a number projected to rise to 60,000 by the end of 2024. This wave of bankruptcies has cascading effect on lenders, suppliers, and small businesses owners, many of whom are now in dire financial strait. The Israeli labor market has also been affected, with 20% of the population unable to work due to military obligation or displacement. The construction sector, heavily reliant on Palestinian labor, has seen a 25% decline, contribution to the collapse of numerous contractors. Also, because of the ban by Turkey, the construction industry is heavily affected. They get some of their product from there. The overall economic outlook is grim, with the Bank of Israel forecasting a negative growth rate of -2% of 2024 and a projected war cost of $67 billion over the next years. The government has already allocated significant supplement expenditure to address the immediate financial burdens of the conflict. The Israeli Population Authority reported that in the past year, 575,000 more Israelis left the country than returned to it. The immigration has halved since October 7. Bank of Israel announced that the 2024 growth rate would be -2%, unprecedented in an Israeli economy used to sustain growth. Fitch has downgraded the country's credit rating, describing the economic outlook as negative. Bank of Israel has raised the interest rate to 4.5%. The military operations capacity is under strain, with shortage of ammunition and resources becoming apparent. The current strategy of prolonged engagement in asymmetrical warfare poses challenges to Israeli military readiness and effectiveness. Additional, the government's budgetary decisions have favored far-right ministries at the expense of social services, exhibiting the plight of vulnerable population. The political landscape remained risky as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coalition relies on far-right support, leading to increased funding to extremist agendas while cutting essential services. This dynamic is likely to foster social unrest and deepen division within the Israeli society, particularly between secular and religious communities. Despite widespread dissatisfaction with the government, Netanyahu administration appears stable for now, contingent or maintaining the support of its political allies. So this is the introduction of the topic, and a lot of Israeli are suffering because they're not getting medical supplies, and schools are banned. Schools have closed down in many places because most of the teachers were called in for the war, and also because, you would say, a teacher who used to teach religion is now teaching math. How is that going to affect Israeli families? And also, most of the families are living in hotels, which the government is paying for, and all these businesses have been promised some number of help from the government, but not many of them have received it. So they're all complaining, and a lot of people are not in now. A lot of people are fed up of the war, and the forecast of the war is that it will go on through 2025. So
I'll quickly go to Aditya. Aditya, do you think this has something to do with the boycott? Because a lot of people I've seen rumors spreading that this is something to do with the boycott. But as far as I can see, in regards to what has been occurring, uh, boycott has not exactly occurred in outright Israeli companies. majority of the known companies which have been rejected by the boycott brigade are basically multinationals like Coca-Cola and Lay's and Pepsi and all these kind of organizations. Even though some Israeli products, if it's a product of Israel, people do state that we're not going to stock it or not going to purchase it. What impact do you think in regards to this is directly due to boycotts?
Thank you, Shah and Maham. So I think there's definitely an effect on the the Israeli market and the products that has been boycotted, like most of which are not directly owned by Israeli groups or Israeli businessmen, but if you look at any business, it's not just about your sales or your market and your market share in one quarter, but it's based on the projections of the business in a long term. So imagine if you have a business which has sales of, let's say, which has sales of, say, $100 million in one quarter. So your valuation of your company is based on multiples, and the growth rate it is expected to show in each quarter. And if for some reason, in only one quarter, if that 100 million dollar sale goes to, like, say, 98, 97 million, it might not be a huge drop in the sales figure, but it shows a negative growth rate, which is the worst thing for especially a public listed company. If your company is not showing a growth rate and its sales are projected to slow down, it massively reduces the net worth or the capital it can pull from the markets and its total share. That exact thing happened with products which were boycotted throughout globe, mostly by a lot of Muslim countries. A lot of Muslims were openly talking about boycotting these products, but also a lot of let's say left leaning or liberal people who are not very pro war that is being happening in Gaza. So that decline in sales of a product or a negative growth is seen as a very negative indicator in the markets, and a negative sentiment towards a company is a big no for any business. Nobody, even if your company is growing slowly, like let's say 2%, 3% in a year, like big brands like McDonald's or Coca-Cola, these businesses have existed for 50, 100 years now, and even at 2-3% growth a year is seen a decent growth rate. So in a year, if these companies show a negative growth rate,
No, but
which
that's
is very,
these companies. But what impact do you think these companies being boycotted have had an impact in relation to financial and the economic conditions going down within Israel?
so yeah, so it's one thing is directly related to the companies. Then also, if you look at direct the markets in the country of Israel, if your country has a negative view with a lot of countries globally who were previously willing to invest in your country, but now they are even a little suspicious, they would refrain from investing in a particular period or the current period, because you have 195 countries you can invest in. All the people who want to invest their money, they look for the safest place with the most capable ideas, or where you can gain your maximize your investments the most. And the first condition of that investment is always to invest in places which has the safest place to park your money, which is very extremely important for any country. Even if somebody has some money and they have to choose between, for say example, US, uh, you can invest in US bonds, for example. It has example 3% returns. And if any business, if you want to set up or invest money in, let's say, in Israel, and that has a 3.5% return, nearly half a percent more. And if you think that there is a little risk factor in investing in Israel. So you'll think that let's buy the U.S. Treasury for a while, and when the condition stabilizes in Israel, I'll invest in that country at that time. So it's a very minute difference between a positive sentiment in investing and a negative sentiment in investing. So which leads to a lot of disinvestment and delayed investment. So which is leading, I believe, is leading
So
to.
boycott, boycott is one of the reasons why this has occurred. One of the interesting aspects is, which you kind of touched as well, but I would like to highlight something. If it was a normal economic deprivation, like you're basically saying, a country on a yearly basis might have been say progressing or increasing, expanding by 5% or 4%, and this year it was by 4% or 3%. That is give and take, and quarterly measures can come up and down. But what's interesting in Israel's case is that in this August, what occurred is major credit agencies around the world, like fintech, for example, and S&P, they've basically downgraded the credit ratings of Israel. And some of the reports, if you look at them and if you read on them, they are pointing out boycotting is just one of the many situations which has occurred, but one of the reasons which has occurred. But then it's regional tension, it is investors and whatnot. But what's interesting is that Netanyahu, he's kind of panicked, and uh, from Twitter to various other places, the guy has basically refused to accept and that economy is not doing well, and he's tried to really downplay it. But I think it's really impactful when a credit agency basically shows or downgrades a country. It's harder for the economy to occur. It's not re-emerge, especially if their credit rating is downgraded. What would you say?
Absolutely. Let me give you another example of the same thing, right? Then I'll
Mm,
come to the similar example about Israel.
mm,
So Yemeni forces, the people who are fighting in Yemen, they they basically fired some bullets on one of the vessels of America, which was transporting some crude oil from probably a Middle Eastern country, probably Saudi Arabia, from the through Arabian Sea, entering the Indian Ocean and then to various places. They tried to shoot down one of the naval ships carrying the crude oil. It was just a minor attack, and just in the same night when the news broke out, crude prices, which were like $75 a barrel, shot up to 95. Like without any major idea of disruption, just the idea that these people can try to target the that straight,
mm.
the prices shot down 20%. The risk was minimal, but these markets which are dependent or work on predictions, they are affected
So,
massively.
Aditya,
So
Houthi have actually
yeah,
kind of
Houthi rebels.
destroyed. Yeah, they've kind of almost stopped the transport and the trade business on Suez Canal, and a lot of companies are choosing to not go by it. That is also affecting on Israeli
So
economy
just
and
just these
other economies around it. But they are attacking regularly.
yeah, so just these sentiments in the market can lead to a massive change in the perception of the flow of the crude oil, which can lead to major disruptions in the prices of these commodities. In the same way, Hezbollah, which has shot some have sent some missiles, attacked places in Israel. Even Iran has done the same. They try to shoot down some targets most of those rockets did not land. Few of them did. Even this negative sentiment of a country being not stable enough for your product or your market to be established, people just try to avoid any negative sentiments, and that just minor difference in the strategy of the investors to avoid one place for investments, or if they don't find a place to be very suitable or safe investment, they'll try to avoid it. And which is, I think, there is a very strong negative sentiment related to Israel globally. Even China is trying to take sides, which it historically has never done that. They recently spoke to people related to the uh, organizations working in Gaza, in Palestine. So they are trying to take sides now. They are talking to members of Hamas, and there is a lot of negative sentiments. No one can deny it. Probably this last 7 to 10 months, Israel has gotten faced the maximum and the most negative sentiments it has gathered in the last 70 years. They have gathered in the last 10 months. It has never been this before.
US is
Never
also
in.
pretty fed up. US is also pretty fed up, and they want this thing to end. But I think Netanyahu is continuously making, and this statement came from someone who, from the Democratic Party, did not want to be named. That the Democrat Party wants to be done. Biden wants to be done with Netanyahu, and they want this war to stop. But Netanyahu keep coming up with one thing or another. Basically, what's happening is that Netanyahu is not really, you would say, famous, in not really liked in Israel, right? Not everybody is in favor of his policies. This war breakout is have actually helped him extend his term. Otherwise, they were supposed to hold election, and he's not winning in the coming election. He knows that already. So he needs to
But
extend the war as much as possible to stay in power.
I think what's interesting is that as soon as the economic situation in Israel went down, and it's election year in the U.S. Almost within panic, Netanyahu basically arrived on the shores of United States, and he made sure he meets both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, along with various other investors and organizations, and there were visits made to major credit agencies as well. I think he's trying to renegotiate those terms because he does realize that this situation is developing and it's going to develop further. And I think I find that extremely interesting that this is like on a rare occasion where outrightly an Israeli prime minister has made a trip and spoken to even both of the running candidates, both Trump and Kamala Harris. Usually they go and come on official trips. They're known to speak to the current president, which he's done as well. But alongside, I see that there is this panic situation when it comes to the economic stuff. But then there is another side to this. The other side is like people have been saying that Hijaz railways and these mega projects, like you mentioned about China as well, they had to flatten Palestine, destroy that Gaza area, flatten it, and now negotiation in regards to who is going to establish what, who is going to create the infrastructure, who is going to get the mega projects. These are the very reasons why you even see Hamas on the table all of a sudden. Otherwise, Hamas was not on the table. Nobody wanted to sit with Hamas on the table, but now they seem to be negotiating, even with Hamas. Only 4 months ago, till even a few weeks ago, if you went into a conversation with somebody who's pro-Israeli and you happen to be of Muslim origin, or somebody who supports Palestine one way or another, these people would come and they would ask you to first make sure that you condemn Hamas. You basically refer to Hamas as terrorists. But today, that situation seems to be changing. It's because it's at the end of the day, it's all about money. The redevelopment of Palestine, which is imperative now for Israel to progress to the next stage as well. Obviously, all the stakeholders are there. Like one of the stakeholders is China, where they're speaking to Hamas because they want those mega projects, and let's see how far that goes, how true that is. Time will tell. All of a sudden, the Saudis and the UAE. They want to help rebuild and negotiate in regards to that. So I think we're going to reach because Israel has flattened Gaza. There is going to be rebuilding. Israel has suffered as a whole in terms of economics as well, and that's very visible. Now there are going to be negotiations to reset those, and that's going to be very interesting. What do you guys think of the second scenario which is being painted? Does it make any sense?
That's going
Maham,
to
you
be
go
really
first.
hard, honestly, because the war is predicted to go all the way into 2005 and maybe 2025 and 2026. By then, there's this fear as well that if it went this long, Israel's economy would not be able to recover from it. So maybe it started from the Hejaz plan, but I don't think it's going anywhere now because now Hezbollah is involved, Houthi are involved, and it's not just Hamas. So I don't know how they're planning to. Egypt wouldn't let refugee come because they don't want to lose the Palestinian land, right? So that's why they're not letting them in. So I don't know. I think it's going to be really hard to make a railway station because that area is not going to be safe because there's on one side there is Hezbollah, on the other side there are Houthis, and it's even if they're planning something like that, it won't work out.
I think the Hamas and the Palestinian authorities in the recent developments have kind of agreed to a ceasefire in principle in the last couple of weeks, and it's been said in
You do
principle.
realize that after that Hamas leader was killed, Hezbollah, Iran, and even Hamas have actually said that we will attack. Not that
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but
Just yesterday, they bombed a very historic
yeah,
thousand-year-old
so so
mosque
It's,
so
in
so
Gaza.
yeah.
that exactly is happening. The aggression from Israel is continuing. But I do believe in the next 3 or 4 weeks, it seems like there are going to be negotiations and there's going to be a temporary ceasefire. And it's going to be interesting. I think contracts are going to be given away. And the stakeholders are going to be, again, Saudi Arabia, UAE, who are going to do it in Gaza. And the Brits and America are going to contribute indirectly and directly in Israel and indirectly within Gaza, and that is going to be the next phase. On and off skirmishes will continue. That's kind of normal, unfortunately, for that part of the world. But I don't think they can sustain the war for much longer, and there's not much left in terms of infrastructure in that area. They cannot do
I don't
much. I
think the
think.
Hamas. I don't think those people care about the infrastructure. They're just attacking them because the IDF is still there, so they're just attacking them. Each member of IDF, the cost per day is 323 million. That's a lot of
So,
money.
so,
If
so we're
this
so,
war kept
so
going
we're.
on and on,
I think, like many people stated, when this war began, people thought it's going to last for a week or 2 months or maximum a few months. but it extended till the entire infrastructure was destroyed, and I think that was where it was headed. Otherwise, the Palestinians would have not let in for those mega structures to be built. But time will tell in regards to that. But you're right in regards to the fact that now the tables will turn, because Israel has completely destroyed the infrastructure and now it's hurting their economy. So maybe the Palestinians now have nothing to lose, or like Houthis and for instance the Iranian regime, they would not want this negotiation to go ahead in regard. It's not within their interest anymore, and how much the Palestinians come into it or not is going to be dependent, because there was initially it was the Palestinians and pro-Palestinian people who were looking for a ceasefire. But it seems to be going in terms of Israel very soon, or indirectly already coming to the table. The tables have kind of turned in that aspect.
Also, we have to
Also,
look at,
Hezbollah is, I think, bombing them regularly.
yes, and also we have to look at, like, why is the, first of all, of course, the sentiment has never been this negative in the last 70 years towards Israel, like even globally. Even if you look at, since a lot of leftist governments are ruling a lot of countries in South America, majority of the South American countries are supporting the Palestinian cause. A lot of, like, countries like even Russia or China are pro Palestine.
Spain and Ireland. Spain
Yeah,
and
so
Ireland too.
and if you look at, like, even America historically, which has never recognized Palestine, but Barack Obama was the very first president in American history who, for the very first time of any previous president, spoke about the two-state solution. Though they don't recognize Palestine, but he was brave enough to talk about it. Two-state solution. They don't
No, but
recognize the two.
I
Yeah,
think it was I think it was at the time of Donald Trump when United States failed to recognize Gaza and they accepted Jerusalem as the capital
but
of
they never
Israel.
recognized it, Shah.
Before then, they proposed the two-state solution. It usually there were numerous debates and delegations with the PLO leader Arafat at one stage, with Bush and the senior Bush, as well as at the time of Bill Clinton. So, historically speaking, the two-state solution was kind of proposed by, condoned by United States. It
Yeah,
was
but
only resolution.
Obama spoke about it openly and talked about a
I agree.
future where there would be two states, which was not liked by a lot of Israelis,
Mm,
including the longest serving Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, who
mm.
was even serving at that time. He
Yeah,
said to me the right.
that prime minister was killed by that prime minister was Israeli prime minister was killed by Israeli right wingers, extremists,
Yeah, so so so
extremists.
Netanyahu is a right wing government, but there is an extreme right wing too in Israel. Then there's
Mm.
some kind of centrist or leftist parties too, which are
And,
smaller.
and then there are neo-religious people as well who don't
Yeah,
accept any of this altogether.
yeah. So
There are
so
many people,
even
so that's the problem with the world. There are many Israeli who are not in favor of war, who do not want or so many Palestinian killed. Not the whole Israel supports what Netanyahu is doing.
even after the attacks of the 7th October, you remember there was a huge protest that broke out in Israel, demanding the resignation of Netanyahu, which was somehow, put down by just immediately launching attack on Gaza and declaring a war on Gaza. And they, he's kind of, became the emergency prime minister of Israel, that we are in an active war and I can't resign at the moment. even if you look at the the politics of United States of America,
Mm.
there might be just two parties that run the country, but it's not just two kind of people that vote for them. The Democrat Party, it's more center left party or usually centrist party, but they have a lot of voter base which is very leftist, even socialist types of people who vote for the Democrat Party. And for them, the issue of Palestine is very very close to their hearts. So when when Joe Biden is not able to stop the war in Gaza, a lot of people who were committed Democrat voter, they threaten Joe Biden that we won't be voting for you again. So it's very frustrating for the left wing, especially, or the Democratic Party, to lose people from even their own voting base. So that's why I see there's a lot of frustration. And since this is a very close tied election this time, there is a lot of frustration from the Democratic side. The right wing Republicans are always very pro Palestine, sorry, pro Israel, has
Mm.
always been, so they don't care. But the Democratic Party losing people from their own voter base is a big loss for them. So that's why I think Joe Biden is looking for a ceasefire. Even Kamala Harris has talked about it. She would love to see a ceasefire. Let's see what happens.
One interesting aspect which I want to bring in, on behest of all the conspiracy theorists out there, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim or anything else. Uh, we've heard this time and again, that Jews control the world, according to a lot of people. So, if Jews control the world, my question to those people is, if you say everything is controlled by the Jews, the finances and the banks and the governments, why is the Israeli economy not doing well? So, would you say those credit agencies, who S&P, as well as various others, the investment bankers, all those Illuminati conspiracies, which we grew up listening to, they seem to have failed in this situation, because these are the companies who were apparently controlled by the Jews, but they're not seem to be helping the Jews right now. They're downgrading them. What is going on? So that's a question to both of you. What is going on? What happened? What happened to Jewish unity and all the conspiracy theorists out there who've been bragging about it? If that entire thing was so true, like we've been hearing for decades and decades and decades. Uh,
I think Shah, people from the the lost tribe should have the first right to respond.
No, I think, especially the Desi community, in fact, everyone, when they don't have anything else, they come up with conspiracies, and that's what they do. But I have to point out one thing. Initially, when Jews were, shunned by the community, which was mostly the Christians, they were not allowed to get into any other profession. So they got into the profession of lending money. That's why they always have money. So they kind of are mostly in the profession of banks, and technically. Um, for a time being, that wouldn't be a lie that they control everything. But then I guess everything just get diluted, and now everybody's just running that, oh, samosa is a triangle, so it's an Illuminati conspiracy. I love that Illuminati conspiracy. I love samosa.
and
I
just
think
because it,
another reason behind, of course, if you look at historically, when Jews were living in Lord were living in Europe, most of the Jews tried to live in bigger city centers, because these were relatively more liberal regions in any country. Like cities are more tolerant towards diverse people living together, because these were still lot safer for Jews to live in They were always targeted throughout history, wherever they went, which is true and sad. But this is also another reason, like, one reason Ma mentioned about, like, they weren't allowed to do enter into a lot of other businesses. The second reason was uh, them being living in, like, city centers or big cities, where like, these businesses were very prevalent. And the third reason also is that, since they were always persecuted, they were always, like, a very tight knit society. They would always try to help each other out, which I think is a great thing. Like, nothing anti-Semitic about it, which is a great thing. If you are persecuted, you try to, like, create stronger bonds, even if you are, like, in small
Ever smaller
numbers.
in
You try
number
to
as well.
stick together. You try to stick together. So I think, like, it's a stupid conspiracy that, they somehow are trying to control, or whatever these, like,
It's
lame
kind of
arguments
failed
people
right
come
now,
up,
though.
come up with.
It's completely failed right now because the thing is, like, I can understand that there was an inclination of the Jewish community over a period of centuries, in terms of going into finance industries or building them, and many Jewish people contributed in terms of how finances are run, but it doesn't mean that they control the entire world and every other organization is there and it's going to be different. Like somebody once told me, in one of my first jobs, at Lehman Brothers, by the way, which doesn't exist anymore, that money and finance is a cutthroat business. It does not see color, skin, or religion. You make money, you're in the industry, your organization is going to remain. It doesn't matter who it is, what background they come from. You create a loss and you don't exist. Ironically, Lehman Brothers does not exist. It was one of the directors over there who stated that. But there we go.
Yeah, but Israel is still getting a lot of money to support their war. I mean, which country have received so much aid from other countries, especially the West? I mean, UK is sending millions of money. US is giving them millions of money. That's kind of suspicious.
Of
Why
course,
should?
Crisis.
there's no doubt. No, it's not. I don't think it's suspicious. But let's be honest. Like, Israel is the strongest ally in the Middle East that America has. So
It's
of
not
course
about.
there
I
is
don't
a.
think. You know what? Yeah, I don't think it's about being an ally. I personally, it's a personal opinion. I personally think Israel is just a proxy state that is being used
Yeah, so a
to
lot of
keep
lot of
the Middle
people
East
even joke
unstable.
about it. A lot of people even joke about it that, Israel is the 51st state of United States of America. That, it's another state which is, like, just distant from, uh, far away from United States, but it's one of the
Hmm.
states of United States of America. So these are all, like, there is some truth to it. Like, Israel has been always been helped by America. They have shared their technologies. Even in the first, like, the war that broke out when Israel declared independence, a lot of help came from America, and always has. Like, even their
One,
latest, like, technology, the Iron Dome, was, like, co-built with the help of US technology and their investments. It's a co-developed project, so
but
there is no denying that.
one extremely huge fun fact, and I would not put this down to conspiracy. In our known global history, there has not been a time when the land of Israel, or whether you refer to it as Palestine, but that region, has not been supported by the current day's superpower. Whether it was at the time of the Byzantine Empire, Jerusalem, and that area, that region was one of the jewels in their crowns. Whether it was the Brits and the Europeans, it was one of the dreams which they had. Whether it was the Muslims
It's
and the Ottomans, they did the same thing, or the Romans for that matter. So from ever since eternity, since we have records of known history, or from the time of the Egyptian pharaohs even, it's always been a place of great interest for great powers, due to its strategic location, due to its influence in terms of culture, in terms of theology, in terms of money it can generate. Uh, there is just extremely enormous amount of interest over there. So America is
Wasn't that
not.
wasn't that Constantinople? Wasn't that
Constantinople was
Constantinople?
different. That was the capital of Byzantine Empire, but even the Byzantines had a
Yeah, but I
special.
thought that was a main place for everybody was interested in. This Palestine region was no favorite of the Abrahamic religions, just because it's in Jerusalem and everything.
No, even the Byzantine Constantinople basically became popular, or came into existence and prominence from the beginning, at the time of Constantine. Uh, but even the Romans, before they became Christian, were very much interested in Herod and what happened with Jesus within those lands, and whatnot. So Constantinople became that jewel much later on. But still, yeah, I would accept
Yeah,
that it
Constantinople was the cultural, head center of the
Trade,
Christianity
Christianity
for
for
trade,
the
a, yeah.
Byzantines.
trade, trade and
Mm.
Christianity. Yeah, so Jerusalem have the same history. It has more attachment with Christianity, Islam, and Jews. So yeah.
And on top of that, with the Babylonians, and any superpower of any time, they've had and generated a special interest in. Like, for example, a good example would be when Muslims conquered Constantinople, which is today known as Istanbul. Um, they, at the same time, much earlier, conquered Jerusalem and Israel, which is known as the Holy Land. And they were more ecstatic about conquering that rather than the other way around, which is again interesting.
So
The,
so holy, it's always covered in blood.
mm,
At the end of the day, it's the most important region for the all three Abrahamic faiths. And also, if you look at, another, spiritual reason behind America supporting Israel, and it's no conspiracy. There are pastors who openly talk about it.
mm,
The Christians of the, or let's say exactly, the evangelicals of United States of America, who believe that, the resurrection of, or, the second awakening of Jesus Christ will be from that land. Though they also believe, strangely, that, when he'll come there again, he'll first people he'll kill will be the Jews that he'll kill.
No, it's
But
actually
that's
something
their,
like this,
prophecy.
Aditya. It's actually something like this. So, according to well, that's what I've read. According to the Christian, the prince that the Jews are waiting for is actually the Antichrist. So they need to make the temple, the third temple, for the Antichrist to come, and then the Antichrist will make promises to them, and then he will kill them, and that's when Jesus will come. In the Jewish book, they think, the Christian think, that the Antichrist is their what the Jews are waiting for. But in the book of Daniel of Jews, it's clearly given that when they make the third temple, there will be impostor who will pretend to be the chosen one or the prince initially, which will be the Antichrist, and he will make promises, and for 2 weeks he will not deliver a single promise. And after that, he will show Israel colors and he will start destruction. Yeah, that's
So
it's kind of
exactly,
exciting.
not all the things that I know, but like similar prophecies that we have heard about. So
Yeah.
so there is a religious angle to it, no doubt about it. There is a religious angle also from the Muslim faith, because if I'm not wrong, this is exactly the place from where the Prophet of Islam left this this earth to heavens, if I'm not wrong, from the exact that mosque where this
And
mosque
also
is
in
built now.
Islamic prophecies as well, Israel state needs to be the third time they need to make the Israel state for the whole process to begin. So it's there.
So there's it's the second most holy place for the Muslims. It's also the place of the birth of Jesus Christ. It's the place where the Temple Mount, or the most holy place of Jews is placed. So at the end of the day, I don't think even in a short term, if there is a hopefully a two-state solution, a peaceful resolution to this problem, I don't think it's going to last for a very long time. Sadly, this place will always remain highly disputed and
Controversial.
contested land throughout the it has been always been there has been wars which were fought for, even historically, even 1,000 years ago. The Crusaders were fighting for these lands, and before that the Christians fought for it, the Jews fought for it, the Muslims conquered these lands, and in the modern history
The
the
Crusaders were
Ottomans ruled over.
Christians. Wasn't the Crusader
Romans.
Christians, right?
Yeah,
The
Crusaders were
Crusaders.
Christians.
Crusaders was Christian.
Crusaders were Christians, but after that, the before that the Muslims conquered it, and in the modern
Mm.
times after the Ottomans, the British took over, and when the superpower was transferred to the Americans, they kind of settled the Jewish population in that land, and now it's also contested. So it's sad that I don't think even after a two-state solution, which is the only likely solution for a long-term peace process, but still I don't believe it's the permanent solution to this problem, because it's so highly contested between these three
I I
massive religions. And yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, where you and many people propose the two-state solution. I personally would like to make that statement. I don't think that's a very viable solution. I think a viable solution would be to an ideal solution would be a single state which does not endorse apartheid, and everyone, including the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians, or anyone else who's an outsider and does not belong to these three communities, uh, has an equal vote and share in regards to what's happening. Theologically
I,
speaking, from theological, just hold on. From theological perspective, I think that place needs to be accessible in an ideal situation for Muslims, Jews, as well as for Christians. And unfortunately, that is not going to occur. And when you were pointing out the evangelical Christians, and I've seen some Muslims like that as well, it's almost like these people are preparing for doomsday. And theologically speaking, they are not on the side of the Jews. They do not like the Jews, these people, because they're what they want to happen or occur is for the Jews to fail after they've created and resurrected the third temple. And that's when the second coming of Jesus is going to occur, like both of you have mentioned. But the fact of the matter is that with this kind of a tussle, this ongoing situation, and the economic requirement of this piece of land, as in regards to the crossroads and within where it happens to be, because it's right at the place where Mediterranean Sea is, and so it's very unfortunate. It's a beautiful area. It's very small, but unfortunately, whoever is
yes.
going to be a superpower is going to keep intermingling with the situation. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I took a bit
So
long.
what I wanted to say is, I don't know, I'm pretty sure you know this, but I think you might have forgotten that I think the tussle between the Palestinian and the Jews is not a very recent one. It is not even 70 years old one, right? The tussle of Palestinian and the Israeli goes way back to the time of King David, right? King David, I think it was David who fought Galileo, and Galileo was a Palestinian, supporting the Palestinian side, and David was the Jew,
Goliath.
right? So I don't think yeah, Goliath. Yeah, sorry, I got it wrong. So
Galileans are
I don't think
always
it's more about Islam. Yes, sometimes I confuse names, guys. I'm so
like
sorry.
it's
But
okay. It's
anyway,
fine. It happens.
the thing is, I don't think it's about the religion of Palestinian. It's about them being Palestinians. I mean, back in that time, they were not Muslims, but they had their fight. It's in their books. I don't think it is possible for them to live together in one state. That's just that, right? They would live with other Arabs. They would live with Desis. They would live with Europeans. But I don't think these two community can live each other. I think putting them
I
together
think there's a.
is a
I think.
recipe for.
Sorry. I thought you'd finished. Continue.
Yeah, so all I wanted to say was that we're going to, I mean, give you your last statement. It's going to wrap up and end this session. It's been an hour. So that's it.
Okay, so I wanted to add something to this. It's a factual thing, and I think people fail to realize that. Like you've explained, that's absolutely correct. There's another thing. Jews were actually expelled from Israel by the Byzantines. So it's at the time of Hazrat Umar bin Khattab that when he basically came into Jerusalem, Jews were let back into the area where he negotiated that Jews have a right to come and pray just as much as you do or Muslims do. As long as they are being respectful, they are not saying anything. So Jews, the very reason the Holy Lands were again Israel or Palestine, that actual region, was accessible to them is because of Muslim rule. Before the Muslims came, the Christians, when they took control under the Byzantines and various consecutive rules, they were not allowed to even enter. With that, Aditya, I think you go ahead, give your final comments, and then I'll do mine, and we'll just conclude.
My final comments are that somebody also asked a question in the chat, so I'll close with the statement. Even a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, who was very sure, after the sad incidents of when Donald Trump was shot uh, by a sniper in one of his rallies. He was pretty sure that Donald Trump is going to win the upcoming elections in November or December. And I responded that you never say so surely that he's going to come back to power, because in countries like India and Pakistan, our people are very emotional people. They a lot of them vote on based on their emotions, but it's not very true for America. It is, there is of course a positive sentiment that do grow for there are for Donald Trump, but it was a very short-lived positive sentiment. So now we see that Kamala Harris is leading Donald Trump by a few points in the in the projected vote share in the coming election. So we don't know if the Democrat Party win the election, or even I think even before the results come out, because it's a very tight election this election season. So I think the Democrat Party will try its very hard for Palestine and Israel to have a ceasefire and come to a conclusion to this problem, because a lot of real leftists
who are not very committed to voting for Democrats. They might not vote, and winning this election is very important for the Democrats. So I think they'll try their best to like to demand a ceasefire, or like seek a ceasefire in Gaza. Hopefully this, like the bloodshed ends. Both sides deserve peace, and I think, like a bright future for the generations. Hope there's a positive solution to this problem. So never say never. We don't know, but this is what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to keep it very short. I think time will tell. I think it's a situation which is going to make Israel think that they are the ones who require this ceasefire. I think what they wanted to do and what they wanted to show, they've done enough. They've completely destroyed Gaza, they've flattened it. So now the question is going to be, will the Palestinians want this ceasefire? The average person. Is Iran going to want to agree to this ceasefire? Are the Houthis and the Lebanese going to agree to this ceasefire? And what active role, and what's going to be interesting in the coming weeks is you're going to see UAE and Saudi Arabia become extremely active in negotiating that ceasefire and speaking to all these parties, including Iran and the Palestinians. How far they get, time will tell, but I'm sure we'll find out. Thank you very much.
All I wanted to say was that the Jews and Muslims have always lived together throughout history in Europe. They always had the same community. They always used to live together because a lot of things were similar among them, like kosher food, halal food, and all that stuff. The problems between Muslim and is Jews started back when Israel was made. So it doesn't really have much to do with being a Muslim. And I feel for the families of course, I feel for the Palestinian, and also for all those families who were displaced in Israel. I don't think they asked for it, but it's happening because they let some right wingers, extremist right wingers, rule their country. So now they're facing the consequences of that. And I don't think Netanyahu is ever coming back after this mistake. He thinks he might be able to extend it, he might be able to get something out of it. But all those people who went through it, like all those kids who are being displaced, or those families who are being displaced, they're facing the burn. And they're not happy. Majority of them are not happy with Netanyahu's performance. So I guess all we can hope is that the war ends as soon as possible, so that not any more lives are lost. So with that, I'm going to end the session. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to our channel. Press the bell button to get regular update of when we're coming live, and we do come live time to time. Yeah, we started another. You can say another program where we're uploading our room from a certain other app, and where we have a debate about South Asian history, specifically about the history of Mughals and Sikhs, and we'll be uploading them from time to time to give you a very unbiased face of what actually happened instead of what people try to portray. So keep listening, and also listen to that video. First part has been already uploaded. Aurangzeb, a great or tyrant. And I hope you like it, and leave a like and subscribe. Then thank you so much for listening. Bye bye.